There are a lot of reasons why the Fiat Multipla is an ugly design. I get it. Most cars are inspired by graceful, predatory creatures, and the proportions of the Multipla honestly look to be more inspired by something like a hippo. So transportation design is an incredibly competitive field. Just to get a job, you have to be enormously talented. So how does a car like this get produced by some of the best designers in the world? Like, what happened? And as you might guess, the story isn't that simple. And there's more to celebrate about the Fiat Multipla's design than you might think. First of all, let's try to understand the environment and context in which the car was designed. The designer, Roberto Giolito, was given a seemingly impossible task. Design a car that can comfortably fit 6 passengers and their luggage all in a tiny compact package. So from the very beginning, Giolito is working with some pretty tight constraints. The length of the car is 157 inches long. That's about 2.5 feet shorter than a Toyota Camry from the same time period. And it seats 6 passengers with their luggage comfortably. So I asked one of my former professors, Rafis Opinion, for some background. Rafi has been in the field of transportation and industrial design for over 30 years. He's an expert automotive historian as well. Here's what he had to say. With the Multipla, the designer Giolito was looking to establish a memorable visual signature in a class that had so many other cars of one box volume that were boring and unmemorable. But in order to achieve a really unique look and not compromise the interior volume, he decided to work with upright seating, like an office or workspace volume. This made the side glass very tall and would have resulted in a much larger and more expensive front windshield. The windshield angle was just not achievable, and even if you could achieve it, there would have been too much distortion. That's kind of at the root of everything weird about this car. The proportions and the overall package are the basis of why this car just looks so off. It's about 5 to 6 inches wider than your average compact car and almost a foot taller. Now, there are actually things you can do to make these proportions appear a little bit more streamlined, but Giolito basically just doubled down and chose to highlight the wacky proportions in some really unusual ways. So the most obvious thing is this bisection right here. The step curves downward and meets the hood almost at a right angle, and if this surface was blended with the hood, the step wouldn't command nearly as much attention. The headlights along this area also contrast with the body color, further drawing our eye to this step. Now, the top portion of the car containing the glass, also known as the DLO or daylight opening, is taller than the bottom portion. By bringing the belt line further down, it makes the car look unbalanced, like it's ready to fall over or something. And this is something that I haven't seen before in other cars. Leave a comment if there are other cars that have this. Now, if we look at the rear of the car, we see a similar theme where the surface bubbles out and then sucks back in to meet the rear windshield, further highlighting the separation between the top portion and the bottom portion of the car. The details are very formless and bubbly. Designers finally had access to 3D CAD modeling that allowed them to make these kinds of hyper-organic shapes. And they got a little bit too excited about this fact, and the result is some really strange, like kind of saggy, droopy weirdness everywhere. So moving on to the interior, this is by far the best feature of the car. In spite of the car being tiny, it feels spacious and roomy. They've achieved this with the proportions that make the outside of the car look so awful. So I've never actually been inside of the car, but here's what Rafi had to say about it. From the inside, the design really does the job of making you feel like you're floating on a cushion and literally hovering over traffic. The vista-like views from the inside are so dramatic and expansive that you have none of the claustrophobic feelings you might get inside of a smaller car. Now, make no mistake, this car's weird. I might even call it ugly, which is not something I say very often about a design. But at least Giolito and his team tried something new, which I can respect. The Multipla will live on as a car that we talk about for quite some time. It actually sold reasonably well in spite of its looks, probably because it was just so practical. And that stems from Giolito's vision for a more spacious interior. Compared to other compact cars in the category, it outperformed them in terms of sales numbers. Interestingly, the Multipla did not sell as well after they updated the design in 2005. Maybe because it looks like any other car on the market. Thank you for your time, everybody. If you liked this video, please leave a like and subscribe.